FreeBSD has gone from strength to strength in 2022, particularly on the ARM platform. It's a sign of the times we are all looking to save energy, and the Raspberry Pi running FreeBSD is just the way to do it. It's fast, easy, and extremely cheap to run. The Raspberry Pi 400 has become my default desktop machine, something I'm proud to say is working out very well. Enjoy this latest edition of FreeBSD User? You know it makes sense. The headlines since the last issue are: July to September 2022 status report is out. It's the third quarterly report for 2022 from the FreeBSD Foundation. GhostBSD donations report, July 2022. The yearly donations amount from the sponsors, patrons and donors. FreeBSD comes to Amazon's Firecracker. First on Amazon EC2, then from the same developer on a new hypervisor. Latest FreeBSD journal for September-October 2022 is out, and you got articles on CARP, kernel crypto, PAM tricks and tips, SSH, IPv6 and a lot more. And remember, timestamps are in the description box underneath the video if you want to go straight to the particular article. You got saving power with a Pi, a week with the Pi, some game reviews, FreeBSD photo apps, and your comments. The rising cost of power is something which concerns us all. Here in the UK, it's getting a little out of hand. Looking at the power consumption of my normal everyday HP workstation, the one that I do most of my work on, and just browsing the internet, even just after boot up, which draws a lot of power, and idling, which roughly is about 146 watts, is too much. Something has to give. Again, I'm still on the HP workstation, and we're going to have a look at the CPU speed. dev.cpu.0.frequency, and it tells us it's 2927. And if we have a look at the overall system in a little bit more detail, so it's dev.cpu.0, and there we go. And we're running at about 50 degrees. The highest it got was 103. That's interesting. And just generally a little bit of information. That the fastest it's going is 2927. So that's probably about as fast as I can get this one to go on the stock cooler. There's not an overclock option on these HP machines. And if you run an MD5 test, it gets done in 2.01 seconds and 473.16 megabyte per second. At least I think it's megabyte. If it's not megabyte, please correct me in the comments down below. That's not too bad. And it should be on a machine like this. And indeed, we'll have a look at some screen fetch. No, we'll have a look at NeoFetch. Yeah, it doesn't show up on this grey background, but you get the idea. It's got twin Xeon X 5570s. There's 2 with 4 cores, so it gives me a total of 8 cores, running at 2.926 gigahertz. So again, it's not the fastest, and with a GeForce GTX 750 and 48 gigabytes of RAM. But it uses up a lot of electric. So in my quest for something leaner and something more economical, I'll turn to something which I've been covering since 2017, and that's the Raspberry Pi, especially the Raspberry Pi 400. It's an excellent machine and something which I feel will do the job very nicely. And FreeBSD runs on it very well too. So if you have a look at any of these videos, you can see how I installed and how you can use it. I'll leave some links in the description box down below. This is not an installation video or a how-to. I'm just going to simply try and show you how to get the best out of it. And indeed, if we have a look at the Raspberry Pi 400 power draw, I'm sorry about the lack of light. It's the light didn't come on this device, so I'm going to have to buy a new one, I think. And as you can see, it's drawing roughly about 5.4, 5.3 watts, and that's on idle. So not too bad. And we're switching over to the Raspberry Pi 400, and if we run the same commands as last time, so syscontrol or sysctl dev.cpu.0.frequency, you can see the Raspberry Pi 400 is idling at 600, which is really not ideal because the default speed for the Raspberry Pi 400 I think is 1800. The stock Raspberry Pi 4 is 1500, but the Raspberry Pi 400 has a better heatsink and comes already kind of like overclocked, if you will, running at 1800. So the reason for this is FreeBSD doesn't put it into its fast mode, as it were. So I'm going to show you several ways that we can get the best out of Raspberry Pi using FreeBSD, and the first few ways is going to be perhaps the most sensible way, and the last way is a little bit more extreme, but it's one that I use and it's rock solid stable. So we'll have a look. To fix the idling problem in the Raspberry Pi, so it's not idling at 600 all the time and therefore feeling slow. So first thing, we go into root and we can issue syscontrol dev.cpu.0 frequency equals, and now we can actually specify 1800, and that will tell the Raspberry Pi to run at 1800, which is its stock speed. And if we just do the command again, look, there it is. It's running at 1800, running at 40.2 Celsius. We're just going to drop it back down to the slow speed again because I want to show you something else. If we do the MD5 test, and eventually it will get there. It's a lot slower than the HP. It's done in 9.62 seconds with 99.07 per second. If we ratchet it back up to 1800 and do the same test again, obviously we're going to see it halved, and there we go. Well, just actually by third, really. So it's 3.19 seconds and 298.48. So there is a marked improvement, of course, as you would expect. But we can do better than that. We can push the Pi a little bit further, I think. Okay, we're going to drop it down again to show you what the second way we can do this. So instead of using syscontrol to bump up the speed, we can add PowerD to the rc.conf for it to start up automatically when the system boots. So we've added it to the rc.conf now, and we can start the service now if you don't really want to reboot. So service PowerD restart. Oh, never mind. It's not running, but it's running now. I'm not used to PowerD running. So that's the more sensible two ways we can do it. But we're going to have a look at the perhaps a less sensible, and you do this at your own risk. I mean, but the Pi should be fine if you do this. But you know, you might crash the system or it might be unstable, in which case drop it down or don't do this. So if we have a look at NeoFetch now, and you can see we're on the Raspberry Pi, and we're just going to syscontrol dev.cpu.0.freq, and we're running at 2147. How did we get this far? Well, first, I don't know if you need to do this, but I always tend to do this automatically. I always have PowerD started. Okay, so I always like to have PowerD going as a default, so it gets machine full speed. Then we go into the MS-DOS partition that every Raspberry Pi has. Well, especially if you boot up on it. And in that, there should be a file called config.txt. We need to edit config.txt. And in there, you will see there are some entries that I've added already. There is ARM_boost, GPU mem, overvoltage 6, force turbo, ARM frequency, and GPU frequency. Now, you can add these if you wish. You can drop the overvoltage down to 4 if you wish. It's entirely up to you. You experiment, you find one that's stable for your system. Well, bear in mind that this is for the Raspberry Pi 400. HDMI safe is something which you should always comment out, because then it makes your display not too big. If you have that default, it's going to look weird and too large. So you always comment that out and you'll be fine. Well, at the moment I'm running at a temperature of 46, so that's only about 6 degrees higher, with a top speed of 2147. And doing the MD5 test, brings at 2.69 and 353.91 a second, which I think compares favourably to what we had on the HP. And as you can see, on the HP we had 2.01 seconds, and on the supercharged Pi it's 2.69, so that's not that different. Speed, we had 473 and 353, not bad. On the stock Raspberry Pi it was 9.62 with 99, and even on a full speed normal speed Raspberry Pi 3.19, so we haven't done too bad at all. So yeah, very nice. And you know, the Raspberry Pi 400 running with these little overclocks, you can either do the normal ones, the safe ones, or you can go for the more extreme. And I found that the extreme ones are very stable, and it gives you a system running FreeBSD, which, I don't know, it's not that far off the HP. There are some limitations, of course, there's some caveats, and one of them is video editing is really a no-go. Not until proper graphics drivers are implemented, and if it matters to you, then Wi-Fi support for the inbuilt Wi-Fi. Although there are ways around that if you want to use Ethernet, or which I do, or you want to use a dongle for an older standard. But saying all that, I think FreeBSD on the Raspberry Pi is a very, very nice place to be. It uses so much less, 30 times less wattage than my workstation, just idling. That's to me, that alone is enough to swap. I mean, I've got a whole room full of computers running for the kids, and now that's going to have to change as well. Maybe I can give them tablets, maybe I can pick up a bunch of Raspberry Pi 4s, I don't know. But the way that the prices are rising for electric, and there's no indication that they're going to come down anytime soon, so I think we all have to change. We'll all have to change the way we do things regarding energy and power. And so using Raspberry Pi and FreeBSD, of course, it gives me, your mileage might vary, it depends on what you want to do with your computer, but it gives me, for everyday use, for browsing the internet, for doing shopping, etc., a very, very cost-efficient and stable and very beautiful system. Anyway, this was only a small video. It really wasn't a how-to, it was more of a demonstration. If you like my videos, if you find them helpful, then please consider subscribing and hitting that like button so I know that people actually like the videos that I'm making. And I'll thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. In this video, I'm using the Raspberry Pi 400 running FreeBSD 13.0 as the sole OS, and on it I will do everything I normally do, well maybe a little bit less, but everything I normally do on a PC for a week. In the first part of the video, the pre-titles and day one were edited on the Raspberry Pi using FreeBSD 13.0 using OpenShot. Not everything was included in this video. A lot of it has been condensed, otherwise the video might be several hours long, but hopefully it gives you the idea or impression of using the Raspberry Pi 400 as a sole computer running FreeBSD. Right, my Pi week using FreeBSD as the OS. Now this video has been edited using OpenShot. The titles have been also created with OpenShot. The frame rate has been created by a very rubbishy camera. And here is a lovely Raspberry Pi 400. I bought this roughly about a year ago, before the price hikes kicked in, so if you're thinking of getting one now, I'd wait a little bit while until the prices come down. But anyway, at the back of the Pi, we've got the Ethernet cable, got the mouse cable, we've got USB extender and a sound dongle at the end with the headphone cable coming out. We've got the drive, the USB storage which it's running off, the USB-C power cable, and then it's the HDMI cable. And I will be using this as a sole computer for a whole week. The other computer is packed up, monitors are off, let's get going. Day 1, putting the video together. Right, here we are on the Motif Window Manager, and I am uploading that video that you've just seen, which panned across the desktop from my camera using KDE Connect, and it's worked nicely. There it is, there's a video. It's kind of strange this. You've actually seen the video clip that I'm using now as I'm showing you the video clip. It's strange. And you didn't see this because this was edited out because that little tab on my phone case sticks up. Right, on OpenShot. OpenShot is a very, I don't say basic, it's a very usable video editor. And I'm just going to drag over some files. There's the files that we've just been looking at. There we go. Just going to save it. OpenShot is not the normal video editor I tend to use, but Kdenlive and Shotcut wouldn't work on this particular install because the FreeBSD on Raspberry Pi as it is now lacks the drivers for the programs to work properly, so it gives an error message and crashes. But OpenShot seems to work, so we'll be using that. I am not used to it, so I'm learning as I go along. So presumably these are the tracks. There's no separate audio, which is odd. Anyway, we'll just drag that down. Right, that's okay. That seems to be fine. I'll just bung it that one. I don't know. It's very strange. Once you get used to working in a certain way, when you switch to something else, it takes a while to get used to it. Right, we're just going to put some titles on. That's interesting. It creates an additional file. I'm going to speed through this a little bit. And I think that we're all good to go to export the video. I don't know how long it's going to take. So I'll let that carry on. And I'll just do a time check now to see what time it is. What time we started. And it's 12:53 in the afternoon. Just after dinner time now. And we'll come back to it when it's finished. Right, we're 99.99, 100%. There you go. And we'll check the time again. And it's 14:41, so it's what that? It's just 1 hour 50 minutes, 1 hour 48, 49, something like that. Just under 2 hours anyway to render a not very long clip. Day 2, Tuesday, web performance. Right, a lot of the things that we do with our computers these days is web related. And in this instance, it's no different. I normally use a dedicated email program, Sylpheed, to get my email done. But a lot of people do use Gmail, so we're just going to check Gmail out using the Raspberry Pi. One thing which I've noticed so far is the browser does tend to drag the system down a lot, so we'll see how this goes. Gmail is Gmail, of course, and surprisingly, there's not a lot going on here, but it feels very laggy. No more laggy than it does using Raspberry Pi OS itself, but the same performance. Simple screen recorder is recording, and that really does slow everything down. There's a calendar. Yeah, this was very slow to start up, so I'll fast forward. Yeah, that looks fine. A little bit slow, but it's things are still popping up, I think. And yeah, you could get away with using that. I don't think I would, but you can do. What else can we check out? I'm not even going to use Google Maps. Yeah, okay, we'll check out Google Docs. Again, a lot of people do their office work or the homework, etc. using Google Docs. I don't think I would. The speed is not too bad. That was quite reasonably fast. And we'll just have a look at this resume or CV if you're in England. Very slow to start up. Okay, I mean, that looks fine. It's a little bit slow to scroll, but if we had to, then I suppose it would do. I do prefer to use actual Office applications rather than using browser-based. The performance is a lot better, as you'd expect it to be. So that starts up quite quick, and it is what it is. It's LibreOffice. I think Abbey Word would be best. I do like Abbey Word. It's something that I've used for years. It's a lightweight application, more suited to the Raspberry Pi, I think. My script, not that I'll use it, but I'll try and write one. You could always use Nedit, I suppose. Yeah, I like Nedit. It's quite fast. It's a Motif-based text editor, so I'm kind of like biased towards that. I do like Motif-based stuff. Right, let's install Numeric. Because when we've got Abbey Word going, so we might as well have another lightweight application, and this is your spreadsheet if you must. I like numeric. It's, again, like Abbey Word, it's something that I've used for a good few years. It's quite responsive. There's a tiny little bit of lag, but it's not too bad. Like I say, what's dragging it down is Simple Screen Recorder. That really is making the system laggy. So the Gmail performance, etc., the OpenOffice performance has been nobbled slightly with the running Simple Screen Recorder. So you have to bear that in mind. Otherwise, when you use a system, as I have done already, without it running in the background, it's as fast, if not a little faster, than Raspberry Pi OS. And video performance of a YouTube video, yeah, it's fine. We'll have a look at the obligatory stats for nerds. So we'll look. Are we getting some drop frames? It's not too bad. Not as bad as I thought it would be anyway. You gotta remember that when you use a Raspberry Pi OS, the Chromium browser, or the Chrome browser, is optimized. They've got it to use the hardware acceleration, the GPU as it is. With Firefox on here, it's not been optimized. So if it's running at all, it's running because of the power of the Raspberry Pi. And it's not doing too bad. And we're just going to run a little speed test. I just want to see how the Raspberry Pi is coping with everything running at the same time, how it affects the speed. I've got quite speedy internet, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I've seen it faster, but that's not too bad, I suppose. And uploading is, well, we'll have a look at what processors are running. As you can see, look, Simple Screen Recorder is maxing out the system a little bit, as is Firefox. So, and Xorg as well. So yeah, then no wonder things are slowing down. But yeah, it's fine. Right. One thing I do like to do is listen to music as I'm getting things done. So I'll just minimize that little YouTube video going in the background. But it'd be nice if I had an MP3 player. Now I know you could use music on console Mock, as I tend to usually use. But I was hoping, and by the way, it's Tuesday today. I was hoping that I could have something like XMMS. But it's no longer available, really. Not in the first version, anyway. So, if I could install Wine, which there doesn't look to be Wine, if I could install Wine and run Winamp, because Winamp runs really well under Wine. But there isn't any Wine. Okay. There's a lot of Wine extras, but not Wine itself. Okay. Well, I'm just going to change the repository from quarterly to the latest and see if Wine's available in there. It probably isn't, but we'll have a look. So I'm just going to make a directory, user local, etc. repos, package repos, that is. So we can make a backup of the FreeBSD.conf, so we're not altering the original. So I've changed it to latest. I've saved it to that new location, and we're just going to update to see what we can pull down. Okay, well, there's slightly fewer files. I think there were 30,000 in the other one, but there's only 29. Okay. And still no Wine. Okay, that's disappointing. Let's see what can be upgraded. There's quite a few things can be upgraded. Of course, these things can be reinstalled for shared library changes. And oh yeah, some upgraded packages. But unfortunately, you need to remove Audacity and LibreOffice. So yeah, I don't think I'll be bothering. I'll change it back to quarterly. No harm done. And now we'll look 30,066 packages compared to, if I can just get up there. There we are, look, 29,663. So there are some omissions. It's very interesting. Okay, well that's fine, no worries. Let's just make sure Audacity is still there. Because I may or may not do some recording in it. It depends how the system goes. So day 4. What happened to day 3? Well, we didn't do much. Day 4, Thursday. A little light relief. Okay, it's not all serious stuff when you're using a computer, of course. Like in the old days, we used to play games. And this is no exception. I'm going to run a little Atari 2600 emulator. It runs really well, as you'd expect it to, but it runs really well on FreeBSD on the Pi. And I'm just concentrating as I'm trying to shoot. I'm not doing very well. Look at that lot dead straight away. I was never an arcade whiz. Right, so what else have we got now? Yeah, right, MU64. Now this is a brilliant Commodore 64 emulator. It's relatively new to me. I've not noticed it before. And it runs really well. It's got a nice interface. I'm familiar with the device Commodore emulators. But this one I've not seen. Of course, it lets you do everything that you can do on a normal Commodore 64, like your ubiquitous small basic program that you would do in the shop and leave it running to annoy the staff. Not that I did anything like that, of course. There you go. Hello. So yeah, that's very good. And of course, you can play a game as Donkey Kong. And I've got no hope of playing this, as really I couldn't do Centipede or Millipede, so this is beyond my abilities. We've got no coordination whatsoever. So that runs all right. A little bit of music, and off we go. Yes, very nice. We'll come out of that. And if you've had enough of playing games, you want to watch a video, then you can watch one on the Raspberry Pi. The video may seem jerky, but like I said, it's because of the overheads of the screen recorder. And let's see if I can actually tweak anything to make it go a little bit smoother. There's not much I can do while I'm recording the screen. I normally use a separate HDMI recording box, what I use when I'm doing the test machine recordings, but it's not available on this side of the room where the Raspberry Pi is. So I'm having to software record, and it's really draining the system. Anyway, this is what it looks like without it running, so I'm just going to use the phone on the camera. And it's a lot smoother, of course, as you'd expect. So yeah, you can easily watch videos on FreeBSD on the Pi with no problem at all. In fact, that's what I do as part of the home theatre PC. I have a little Raspberry Pi 4 running. Day 5, Friday, a little hardware. Right, look what's come through the post. Now this will make things a lot easier for me. And if you use a Raspberry Pi or Raspberry Pi 400, I recommend you get one of these. What is it? We'll find out in a minute. It is a tiny little hub. And it's made out of aluminium, which is very nice. There's a bit of weight to it. It's not made out of plastic. And it will enable me to move all that there and plug it there. And it's got a little power one as well, so super fast charging. And individual little buttons to switch each one on and off. So you could have a lot of... that's very nice, that little cable. You could have a lot of USBs in there with different OSs on and switch between them without unplugging and plugging. So I'm just going to open, there we go, there's the power supply. The other one must have been the USB cable. A little booklet. And yeah, it's very nice. Anything else? That's it, I think. That's it. Oh, let's get the actual main thing out. Okay. Very nice. It's aluminium based, a bit of weight to it, so it's not going to move on your desktop easily. Yeah. I recommend you get one of these. It makes life a lot easier. I think it was only cheap. It was only about £20. What's about $25 US? I don't know. And there's the power connector. There's not on that end, of course. So yes, let's put it there like that. And it'd be nice if we had it in white, but it will complement it very nicely and make life a lot easier. Here it is, all connected up, all lit up like a Christmas tree. And we're just booting up on the system again. I love that scrolling text. Right, so yes, I've got the USB sound dongle in there. It's running nicely. Got the USB storage device. A Wi-Fi thing, which I'm going to try. And some spare. Although I don't think the Wi-Fi thing will work. Will it boot up? Yeah, there we go. There's the login screen. So I'm just going to slowly type it in because I'm typing in with my left hand and holding the camera with my right. Password. We're done? Yeah. Brilliant. And here we are in there. And the great thing is it frees up the 2 slots in the back of your Pi. So you can have lots of storage actually. It's really nice. Runs quite fast. No problem at all. I like it. Like I say, it's a powered USB hub, and that's what I recommend, not one which is powered by the USB socket itself, because I don't think the Pi could handle that. I mean, I might be wrong, of course, but a powered one is always best. And I'm just going to try speed test again now that we're actually filming with a camera. Yep, it's a lot quicker. So having that screen recorder running in the background did slow everything down, not just the browsing experience, but also speed, which is peculiar. Even the upload speed is faster as well. Yeah, and that's how it is. It's really a reasonable prospect to use FreeBSD on the Raspberry Pi 400 as your sole desktop. It really is. You're not going to do much video editing, of course, but everything else runs quite adequately. It will use the power, not much more of a calculator. So cool, and the sound works nicely through the USB thing, which is also very cool. I did test the Wi-Fi, it didn't work. Day 6, Saturday, a glimpse of the future. This is FreeBSD 14.0 current. It's the latest one that's just come out at the time of this recording. And what do you see? I see Kden Live and Shotcut running nicely. I'm just going to make that a bit bigger. Do pfetch. Yep, FreeBSD 14.0 current, running on Raspberry Pi. And the date is, no. And the processors are, Simple Screen Recorder is still using a lot up. But it's not too bad. But Kden Live, yeah. And it's version 22.04.0. And Shotcut 21.03.21. They run in. Brilliant. So that's fantastic. The actual FreeBSD 14.0, I mean, I don't know what they did, but them 2 video editors running is a good sign for the future. Now, if it only sort out the video drivers, everything will be great. And that's one thing I did find out about this week, that the Raspberry Pi 400 is more than capable of being a desktop replacement, as long as you're realistic. It's not going to replace my workstation, which is an HP Z600. It's got 48 gigabytes of RAM. It's not the fastest RAM, but 48 gigabytes of RAM and 2 physical CPUs, giving me 8 cores, or 16 if you hyper-thread them. It's not going to... I mean, there are other beast machines out there that would blow that up. So it's not going to replace something like that, of course. But you know, for power consumption, it takes nothing more than a calculator, a desktop calculator. And for its compact size, it doesn't take a lot of room up. So there's a lot to be said about the Raspberry Pi. It's a fantastic machine. But it's, as long as you accept that, if you're just going to keep it for basic things like web browsing, email, and light gaming, it's more than adequate. And FreeBSD on that is also more than adequate. There are some limitations, of course. You're not going to compile anything from ports in realistic fashion because it would take you a long time. You're not going to play the latest games. You're not going to play any 4K videos, etc. But other than that, very nice. I enjoyed this week. At the end of this video, there is a little bonus clip of FreeBSD 13.1, which is typical. I started the video a week ago. I didn't really know when they would release FreeBSD 13.1, but we'll have a look. And of course, on this day that I'm finishing the video up, it gets released, which is Monday the 16th, and it gets released. And so I've had to tack it on at the end, as is always the case, of course. Anyway, a little bit of ramble at the end. Hope this video was reasonably informative. And thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. One, vegan on a desert island. A hypothetical question is taken to the extreme in this game. Our protagonist, Rachel, is challenged by the brutality of nature, the politics of species, and the struggle to persevere. Rachel's vegan ethos is useful, as the island is brimming with animals that can help her. But winning their support is no easy task. Rachel must use her communication skills and problem-solving abilities rather than coercion to get what she wants. Now, this great game is a 2D adventure game, and it's available for PC, Mac, Linux, and FreeBSD. And it's very much old style, in the Super Nintendo style, I think. So if you're used to playing any of them old games, I think you'll be home with this. The graphics are just perfect. The problem solving, a little bit challenging, but not too bad. And the controls, well, they become second nature after a while. So if problem solving is something that you like to do, I think Vegan on an Island is just for you. Number 2. Flight of the Amazon Queen. Now this game is downloadable from the FreeBSD repository, and it's playable via the Scum VM. So it's the proper thing. It's not a remake, it's not a port. And going through it, it's very much like a 1940s, adventure serial. Similar to Indiana Jones in a way. If you've ever played, or if you're old enough to ever play any Amiga games, then this will look very familiar, or indeed any old PC games. And the game starts off, eventually, when you get there, after a little bit of a cutscene, where you get two of our protagonists facing certain doom. And there they are. So I'll just fast forward all this because it does take a while. And basically the big bad villain who is going to come and kill them. No. And the hero turns up, says he can free them. The villain turns up. They escape. He gets blown up. They get on a plane. And when he arrives, someone is missing. It's a point-and-click adventure where you look for clues, work out the puzzles as you go along. And it's a pretty classic game. So check it out. The interface works nicely. The graphics are very nice. And I think this is a good way to while away the hours. Number 3, Rescue. Described as an action-adventure in space, it really is just a Star Trek game. That was very prevalent in the 1980s. It's called Star Trek Rescue Mac, and it's an adventure action game in space written in Java. It's based on an old Mac game called Rescue by Tom Spreen. It's a 2D space, real-time action strategy game, and you're in control of the ship that you fly, it's obviously the Enterprise, that you fly around in space fighting enemies and making friends on your way. The main objective is to rescue people from planets and take them to star bases. Now that's easier said than done. I had to go at this, and the complication is there's a lot on the screen to look at, and I think the game is way too complicated for me. But if you're into your strategy and real-time games, I think this will actually this will do the job. As you can see from my gameplay, I have no idea what I'm doing. But then again, I didn't in the Star Trek games that used to be able to get in the 1980s as well. So not much changed there for me. Try it out. You might like it, and it's free. And if you want a bit of that old school adventuring, this is pretty good. Number 4, Open Adventure. The original Colossal Cave adventure from 1976 was the origin of all text adventures, dungeon crawl games, and computer-hosted role-playing games. This is the last version released by Crowther and Woods, its original authors, in 1995. It's been known as Adventure 2.5 and 430-Point Adventure. It's available from the FreeBSD repositories as Open Adventure. As you can see, it's a text one where you have to type in short commands like south, west, etc. to work your way out through the forest, work out the clues as you go along. And I found a building, so enter, look at the building, if I can spell it. Gives you a short description. There's no graphics here, so you have to use your imagination. And then you can enter the building, and you grab the various objects. Now, I remember during the 1980s where you had 8-bit computers, this was something which we played a lot. Although by that time, some very basic graphics were starting to creep into the games. But there were still some adventures that there were text, like the Scott Adams, etc. So yeah, if you want a taste of the old school adventures using text, this game will fit your needs. It's very well done, by the way. And no, I haven't typed in any colourful metaphors in order to see what the computer would say, as we used to do a lot in the school days on the school computers. Number 5. It's either Mauritius or Mauritius, whichever way you pronounce it. It's a top-down adventure game where it's set far below the surface of a planet. Our character, seeking an end to the troubles that plague him, journeys into the hallowed Orca Storm in search of answers. You basically start off in this area where you can buy power-ups, you can save your status and your progress, and you venture into the different catacombs and dungeon areas of the game, encountering aliens as you go along, or baddies, or whatever they are. You zap them with an energy field, so the longer you hold it down, the more powerful it becomes and the wider it goes, but the closer they can get to you. Killing them will result in some nice, presumably crystals that you pick up. And then you can trade them crystals back at your start, there if you happen to get killed, and upgrade yourself. This is a fun little game. I actually quite enjoyed this. So yes, you just pick up all the diamonds and crystals, etc., and you can trade them in later. Now this is a game, if you're used to old school Spectrum type of isometric adventure games or dungeon games, I think you'll like this very much. And it's a game where the learning curve is not too steep. So yes, it's an excellent game and I enjoyed playing it. I'll leave a link to all the games that I've covered. There's only 5, and instructions to install them. So yes, while it would be nice to have Steam and all the latest AAA games, sometimes some of the old school simpler games can be just as rewarding. If you've got any games that you would like to recommend or play, then please leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll pin them when we're finished. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Dear viewer, some of the applications featured are dedicated photo editors and the others are graphic applications, but they are very much capable of being photo editors, so I included them. Photivo is a cross-platform photo processor for RAW and bitmap images with 16-bit precision. So it's aiming at a semi-professional user base. It is licensed under the GPL version 3. Photivo features GIMP integration, RAW and bitmap support, batch mode, tone mapping, adaptive saturation, and perspective correction. Darktable is an open-source photography workflow application and RAW developer. This software manages your digital negatives in a database and lets you view them through a zoomable light table. It also enables you to develop RAW images and enhance them. It's licensed under the GPL version 3. So Darktable's features are SSE and OpenCL support, RAW support, zero latency, tethered shooting, and it supports Picasa and Flickr. I doubt many who use FreeBSD would have not heard of the GIMP, which is the GNU Image Manipulation Program, a freely distributed program for photo retouching, image composition, and image authoring. It is licensed under the GPL version 2. Some of the features of GIMP include full screen editing, layers and channels, advanced scripting, full alpha channel support, sub-pixel sampling, and the support of a variety of plugins. Although Inkscape is perhaps not the first choice when it comes to photo editing software, Inkscape is more than capable of handling the task. Inkscape is an open-source vector graphics editor with capabilities similar to Illustrator, whilst using the W3C standard Scalable Vector Graphics, or SVG, file format, which is an open industry standard XML-based format. I personally use Inkscape to produce all my graphics for the channel, and that includes the thumbnails as well. Inkscape is licensed under the GPL version 2. Some of the features of Inkscape include bitmap tracing, Boolean operations, layers, node editing, SVG support, and object grouping. Krita is something I have begun to look into more and more lately, and I won't be stopping using Inkscape anytime soon, but I'm curious as to what Krita can actually do for me. Krita is a painting, photo retouching, and raster image editing application. Krita contains both ease of use and fun features like guided painting, and high-end features like support for 16-bit images, CMYK, LAB, and OpenEXR. Krita is scriptable in Python and Ruby and offers a DCOP interface, which stands for Desktop Communications Protocol. Some of the features of Krita include plugin support, it's scriptable, supports color models, images and layers, filters, and it supports custom masks and brushes. Lightzone is professional level digital darkroom software. Rather than using layers in the way that other photo editors do, Lightzone lets the user build up a stack of tools which can be rearranged, readjusted, turned off and on, and removed from the stack. It's licensed under the new BSD license. Some of the features of Lightzone include non-destructive raw editing, supports unlimited layers, has batch support, features one-touch photo enhancing, and is cross-platform. PhotoFlow is a fully non-destructive photo retouching program providing a complete layer-based workflow including raw image development. In some respects, it looks and feels like Photivo. Some of the features of PhotoFlow include plugin support, 8, 16, 32 and 64-bit integer and floating point support, layer grouping and masks, and support for most common editing tools as you'd expect. Pinter, or Painter, is an open source image manipulation program that mimics the usability of Paint.net. Its goal is to provide a simplified experience for casual users. Pinter has many features typical of image editing software, including drawing tools, image filters, and color adjustment tools. As a non-professional at photo editing, I really like Pinter, but it may be just too limiting to professional users. It's licensed under the MIT X11 license. Some of the features in Pinter include unlimited layers, pad docking library, it supports open raster, it has an extension manager, and unlimited do and redo. And last but not least, RAW Therapy, which stands for the Experimental RAW Photo Editor, is a cross-platform RAW image processing application. RAW Therapy involves the concept of non-destructive editing, similar to that of some other RAW conversion software. The raw loading engine of RAW Therapy is based on DC RAW. This means that all cameras supported by DC RAW that use a classical RGB Bayer pattern sensor are also supported by RAW Therapy. It's licensed under the GPL version 3, and some of the features include demosaicing, DC RAW 8.82 support, color booster, processing queue, and chromatic aberration correction. It's great to see so many potential photo editing applications available for FreeBSD. It shows that Windows, Mac and Linux are not the only game in town when it comes to editing some of your photographs that you may have taken over the festive period or indeed from last year. Although my experience of them is limited, as you probably saw from the demo that I gave, in the right hands you can produce some really top-notch professional quality work. I'd love to know if you use any of these applications in the comment section down below, and if you do, tell me how you use them and what you've used them on. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Right, here are a selection of comments since the last issue of FreeBSD User, which was number 1. Laria says, really excellent, very informative. Well, thank you, Laria. Kyle says, really like this idea for a video journal. And I do too. It's something which I've been wanting to do for a long time. And going back the feedback from the previous edition and the experimental one at the beginning, I kind of think that it strikes a chord with a few other people as well. Analytic Minded says, watching your videos always gives me early internet retro vibes. Well, thank you. I think. No, it's fine. I know what you mean. It's because I don't put much polish into it. I try as much as I can, but it's always going to come out like this. So if retro is what you like, retro is what you're going to get. Yusuf says, kudos on your VideoZine. Best wishes. Oh, that is brilliant, Yusuf. Thank you very much. And much appreciated, my friend. Porchleb3. No, is it PO3 Chleb3? I have no idea. It says, many people show how to install FreeBSD and nothing else. Few how to make a server, but no one shows how to use it every day. RoboNuggie fills that gap. Thank you. That's very much appreciated. Thank you. And sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Well, that's it for another edition. Hope you enjoyed it. The next one will be in winter, so that's probably, I don't know, end of December, January, perhaps even March, around that time. And I look forward to seeing you then.